welcome back, everyone. Let's have Cameron Tymstra, CEO of Targa Exploration Corp. It trades on the CSE under the symbol TEX and the OTCQB under the symbol TRGEF. Targa Exploration recently announced the completion of the next phase of exploration work at the company's Opunaka Gold Project in Canada. Welcome back to the conference, Cameron.
Thanks, Anna. Good to be back. And thanks, everyone, for taking some time in the middle of the summer to tune in and hear an update on the company today.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I'll spend kind of the next 10 minutes or so mostly just talking about our Opunaka project. It's really the focus of all of our exploration efforts this summer up here in Canada. We've recently completed the next phase of field work at Opunaka, so that's what I'll be talking about today. I think when we last presented on this platform in early June, we were just about to start kicking off the next phase of work there. And this work is really to follow up on some exciting results that we had from last year's exploration work at Opunaka. Back when we originally went there exploring for lithium and ended up finding two really exciting gold anomalies that we're currently trying to track down the bedrock source of. So just to recap on the project, this is located in Quebec, Canada. We consider Quebec to be really one of the best places to do exploration business really in the world. It has really favorable tax incentives for our investors as well. So it certainly helps make for some low-cost exploration work here in this province, and does have a very supportive government as well. Our project specifically is located in the James Bay region of Quebec. There's currently a lot of exploration work going on in this region right now, particularly for things like lithium, as well for gold. We're located about 50 kilometers south of what's called the Trans-Taiga Highway. So it's an all-seasons access road that we have pretty close by the property. And there's a high-voltage power line that runs parallel to that road as well. So we do have close access to those two key important infrastructure assets, all-seasons road access and a high-voltage power line, really necessary for anything related to mining. We're about 40 kilometers south of the Corvette lithium deposit. That's owned by Patriot Battery Metals. That's the largest pegmatite lithium deposit in North America to date. And we're about 120 kilometers northeast or so of the Éléonore gold mine. That asset is owned and operated by Newmont. They produce about 250,000 ounces of gold there. And there's several other known gold deposits and occurrences kind of in the area of Éléonore as well. And in terms of the style of gold mineralization that we're looking for at Opunaka, at least from the limited information that we have so far from the project, we're kind of looking at similar styles of deposits to what you see over at the Éléonore side there. So last year's work uncovered two exciting gold and till anomalies. One of them was 4 kilometers by 5 kilometers in size. When it comes to exploring for till, essentially what we're doing is sampling the material that the glaciers left behind during the last ice age. So there was about probably 1 or 2 kilometers thick of ice that covered most of Canada about 10 or 15,000 years ago. And as that ice moved across the land, it scraped up the bedrock and pulverized that material down to clay and sand and gravel and left all that material behind, usually several kilometers away from where it originated on the bedrock. And then as those glaciers receded at the end of the ice age, it left that material sitting on top of the bedrock. And so what we're doing is we're sampling this till to get a good understanding of what elements might be present in the bedrock, but usually located several kilometers away. And so these two really exciting gold anomalies we found weren't just elevated for gold values, but also arsenic and tungsten. And those three elements together are really key geochemical indicator elements of the sort of gold deposits that you see kind of on the other side of the Opunaka Basin, where you have the Éléonore deposit, where you have the Chichu deposit as well. And those are all multi-million ounce gold deposits. So it's really following up on these anomalies. That's the focus of our efforts for 2024. And so what we've done over the past month or 6 weeks or so is get back out in the field and continue that till sampling survey that we started last year. We're moving in the up ice direction. So if you think about seeing smoke in the sky and wanting to find where the fire is located, you would follow that smoke upwind to find the fire. We're basically looking at this material in the till and continuing to sample in the direction that the glaciers came from, so in the up ice direction, to ultimately find the bedrock source of that gold. And so we've been doing that for both of the gold anomalies that we identified last year. So over the past month or so, we took about 1,500 additional till samples on a regional sort of spacing, about lines 1 kilometer apart, and analyzing those samples in camp with a portable XRF machine. Those machines aren't great for detecting gold, but we're using them to detect arsenic since there's such a strong correlation between gold and arsenic from the work that we did last year to help us identify where that anomaly stops. And that's very important for us because once we know where it stops, we have a much better idea of where a potential bedrock source could be because these till trains could be 5 kilometers long, they could be 8 kilometers long, they could be 10 kilometers long. And so we were successfully able to identify the heads of those till trains, then come back with infill sampling at a much tighter grid spacing to really help us narrow down the areas of a potential bedrock source. And then in the meantime, our geology prospecting teams were also out there basically sampling all of the rock outcrops that they could find and boulders they could find as well, ultimately looking for something with gold mineralization in it. So here you can see the results of doing that testing in camp. Certainly all these samples have also since been sent to the lab, so we'll get all the gold values and everything back from those probably sometime in August. So we have a total of about 2,600 of those till samples currently in the lab. We have over 130 bedrock and boulder samples as well currently at the lab. And then we took about 70 HMC samples, and that stands for heavy mineral concentrate. Basically, those are more of a bulk till sample, about 10 kilograms per sample. And those samples get sent to a lab where they get split out into different density fractions to help us identify specific minerals. We also take the densest of that material and analyze it under microscope, ultimately to look for gold grains, to count the number of gold grains that we find, and basically describe them based on how rough or smooth they are on the outside, which can help us help indicate how far those gold grains have traveled from their bedrock source. That's another piece of information to help us identify potential bedrock location for the gold that we're seeing in the till. So you can see here on the map, these pink dots are the highest grades in arsenic values that we saw. You can see where the ice direction up here as well. So we know that there's sort of a limit in terms of where these higher values stop. And to us, that identifies the head of the till train. So we've really narrowed down possible locations of a bedrock gold source. Again, we started off, this property is almost 200,000 hectares or 100,000 acres in size, about 85,000 hectares. So it's certainly a lot of ground to cover. But we've now identified at least 2 potential areas to host bedrock sources of gold. Those are 2 distinct anomalies. They're about 12 kilometers apart along this trend line here. And we have identified a 3rd area of interest as well with elevated arsenic and gold values. So we still don't know exactly what type of gold mineralization we're looking for, but based on the geology that our team identified this summer already, we are seeing some similarities in terms of the regional geology, but also the local geology to those other deposits about 120 kilometers away that are also near the Apanaka and La Grande provincial subboundaries, particularly the Elinor deposit and the Chichu deposit, and some other gold anomalies that have been identified in those areas as well. So same metamorphic grade, similar environment, and very importantly, similar geochemical signatures from that gold, arsenic, and tungsten that I mentioned earlier. So it's a very exciting time for the company. We do expect to start seeing results from this field program in terms of things coming back from the lab, potentially as early as the end of July, but more likely most of it will be coming in sometime in mid-August. Once we have all of those samples and all those results, we'll be able to plan our next phase of work at Apanaka. And we do have a window of opportunity to revisit the project this year before the snow falls sometime in September. So currently our plan is to go back there in September, continue following up on this project, and hopefully make a gold discovery later this year, and ultimately look for drill targets for a future drill program, likely for some time next year as well. So really just to recap, I know this is a bit of a short update here. We started a little bit late, but we're a company based up here in Canada. We've got a great backing from both the Inventa Capital and Discovery groups. The principals of those groups sit on our board of directors. They serve as our advisors as well. They're some of the founding shareholders of the company as well. So we certainly have an ability to raise capital going forward, and we still have a little over $1 million in the till at the moment after that last field program we completed. And we're working on something very exciting. This is an area that's never been explored for anything before. And so now that we know there's significant potential there to host not one, but potentially multiple bedrock sources of gold here. And we'll be getting some results just in the next couple of weeks. So it's certainly an exciting time for the company. We consider this to be a pre-discovery phase project, which for me is really the most exciting because you can really create the most value for shareholders through that discovery phase, through that discovery process. So I encourage everyone listening today to stay tuned for Targa over the next 1 to 2 months. We certainly expect some news flow coming down the pipeline in terms of results from this field program and launching our next phase of work in September as well.
All right. Thank you, Cameron. We do have a few quick questions for you if you have time.
Sure.
Leonidas asks, are you eventually going to be a production company, or will you partner or exit at that point?
Yeah, I mean, certainly right now we're squarely focused on discovery making. Certainly far down the road, if we are successful in making a big discovery here, well, our board will have to consider next steps. But certainly in most parts of the world, when you have a large gold discovery, especially if you're a single asset company, it usually does make sense to partner with a large company that has that capital to put that into production. And that's usually the route that most juniors go.
And Frank asks, when it comes to roads and power, are there any infrastructure you're lacking?
Roads and power to us are really the two most critical ones. There's certainly a lot of water in this part of the world as well, so we're not lacking in water. And there are other mining projects in the region as well. So in terms of having some skilled labor in the area is another key piece of the puzzle when it comes to mine development. There is access to that as well in this region.
And you can close with this, maybe a timeline on expected study results or next steps for the Apanaka project.
Sure. We hope to get some of the HMC results, those gold grain counts, probably towards the end of July or early August. The remainder of the samples, all the rock samples and bedrock samples that we took, as well as all the additional till samples, those are expected in mid-August. We plan to use those results to plan for our field program in September. So probably sometime in mid-September, we'll be getting back to the field with the next phase of work.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Cameron. We look forward to following you along with future updates. Thanks for being back today.
Thank you, Anna.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back with Region 3 Corp.